Imagine standing outside on a quiet night, staring at the vast expanse of the night sky. You're gazing at the stars, the galaxies, the infinite stretch of the cosmos, and it seems like everything is just right there, just beyond your grasp. For centuries, humankind has looked up at the stars with awe, curiosity, and wonder, searching for answers to the greatest questions of the universe. What lies beyond our planet? How did the universe begin? Why is it even here at all? But there's one mystery that has confounded scientists, physicists, and thinkers for decades, a cosmic enigma that could hold the key to understanding the very fabric of reality. It's the very reason the universe is expanding faster than ever, the force that's pushing everything apart at a mind-boggling rate. It's something we can't see, can't touch, but it's all around us, controlling the fate of the universe itself. This is the story of dark energy, and in the next few minutes, you're going to find out why it's both one of the greatest mysteries of our time and a major force that governs our universe. But here's the catch. You won't just hear about this force, you'll understand it. I'm not just going to throw jargon and complex theories at you. I'm going to make this enigma, this strange and fascinating phenomenon, something that you can truly grasp. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer picture of why scientists are both terrified and amazed by dark energy and its role in the accelerating universe. We're diving deep into the unknown, exploring the biggest questions that modern physics and cosmology are grappling with. So, why does dark energy matter to you, the person watching this video right now? You've probably heard of it in passing, maybe on a documentary or a science podcast, but like many, you've likely just accepted it as one of those mysterious concepts that's out there, something too abstract or technical to fully understand. But what if I told you that dark energy isn't just a scientific curiosity? It's one of the greatest challenges humanity will face as we look to unlock the deepest secrets of the universe. What if I told you that dark energy might be the reason we won't ever be able to answer questions like, how does the universe end? Or is there an ultimate fate for everything we know? That's right. The very existence of dark energy might mean that we never get to truly understand how everything will eventually turn out because it's driving the universe toward an end that we may never be able to explain. But before you click away, hear me out. I know this sounds like something you can't possibly comprehend, but that's why I'm here. You clicked on this video because you were curious, because you were looking for answers, and guess what? I'm going to give them to you, step by step. By the end of this journey, you'll see dark energy not as this impenetrable, incomprehensible force, but as something that's actually deeply connected to our existence and how everything around us works. You might be asking yourself, how can something I can't even see be so powerful? The universe we live in is a place of wonder, of unpredictability, but it's also full of surprises. The force of dark energy is so mysterious and perplexing because it has an effect on everything, but we don't even know what it is. For decades, astronomers have been collecting data and trying to piece together a theory of how it works. What started as a strange observation, that distant galaxies are accelerating away from us, soon turned into one of the biggest breakthroughs in cosmology. But what is dark energy? How did scientists come to discover it, and how did they even begin to understand its role in the universe? Right now, you're probably wondering how this acceleration actually happens. Picture this. For most of the history of the universe, things were slowing down, pulled back by the gravitational forces between galaxies and stars. But then, about 5 billion years ago, something began to change. Something powerful, something mysterious, started driving galaxies apart faster and faster. What caused that shift? Why did the expansion of the universe accelerate instead of slowing down? This is where dark energy comes into play. We know it's there. We know it's pushing things apart. But how did it come to exist, and why is it so crucial in the future of the universe? I know you're probably wondering what this all means. How does it affect you right now? Well, think about this. Dark energy is not just a scientific curiosity, it's something that affects the very way we understand time, space, and gravity. It challenges everything we know about physics. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about the nature of reality itself. And the deeper we go, the more we realize that everything we thought we knew, everything we believed about the universe, might just be a tiny piece of a much larger, far more intricate puzzle. But here's the thing. Dark energy doesn't just affect the fate of stars and galaxies. It could have an unimaginable impact on the future of our planet as well. Imagine a force so powerful that it controls the very expansion of the universe, and yet we don't even fully understand it. How could something that affects everything we know remain hidden from our eyes, from our tools of measurement, from our best minds? In this video, we will explore what dark energy is, how it was discovered, why it seems to be increasing in strength, and what it means for the future of our universe. But here's the real twist. Scientists are only scratching the surface. They've discovered the evidence, the data, and they know that something like dark energy must exist, but they're still in the dark about its true nature. So, if we don't know the answer yet, why should we care? Why does this matter for you, watching this video? I'm going to show you how the quest for understanding dark energy has shaped the way we view the universe. And you won't just get some dry explanation of theories. I'm going to take you on a journey that will lead us straight into the heart of the most mind-bending mysteries that modern science is facing. This is the story of the accelerating universe and how one unknown force is pushing the boundaries of our understanding to their breaking point. It's the kind of story that will change how you think about your place in the cosmos. You see, this is not just about what's out there, it's about us. It's about the universe we live in and the untold secrets that lie waiting to be uncovered. And the deeper we dig into the heart of dark energy, the more questions emerge. So, stick around. You've made it this far, so don't quit now. You're on the verge of learning the most incredible truth about the universe and the forces shaping it. Dark energy may just be the final frontier in our understanding of space itself. In the next part of this video, we're going to dive even deeper into the strange discovery that led scientists to this conclusion. But trust me, you won't want to miss it. It's going to be a ride you won't forget. Are you ready to unlock the mystery of the universe? Keep watching because we're just getting started. And I promise you, by the end of this, the universe will never look the same again. As we continue on this journey, the enigma of dark energy becomes even more elusive, more tangled with each new revelation. You see, the history of dark energy is not just a collection of scientific breakthroughs and mathematical equations. It's also a story of brilliant minds grappling with something they cannot touch, cannot observe, yet feel its effects every single day. The discovery of dark energy wasn't an overnight success. It wasn't a single eureka moment that illuminated the minds of physicists like a light bulb flicking on. No, it was a slow burn, a process of trial and error, of failure and frustration, of chasing down shadows, trying to pin down a ghost that no one could see. But why does this matter? Why am I bringing you into the heart of this mystery when all you really want to know is what dark energy is and how it will change everything we know about the universe? Because, in truth, understanding dark energy is about understanding the nature of discovery itself, the path scientists take when they face something beyond the limits of human comprehension. It was in the late 1990s that astronomers, a group of researchers from across the world, began to notice something strange. The universe, contrary to what they had expected, wasn't slowing down in its expansion. In fact, it was speeding up. It was an unexpected twist in the plot of cosmic evolution that no one had anticipated. The usual assumption, based on centuries of observations and calculations, was that the force of gravity would eventually pull everything back in, slowing the expansion. But the universe wasn't obeying those rules. It was as if some unknown force, a hidden hand, was actively pushing galaxies apart, accelerating their movement into the vast nothingness of space. This was no small discovery. It was a game-changer, a realization that made scientists rethink everything they thought they knew about the universe. And yet, they were still in the dark. They could see the effects, could measure the acceleration, but the question remained, what was causing it? And that's where things get complicated. As the data poured in, so did the theories. Some suggested it was a result of an invisible form of energy, something that filled the empty space between galaxies. Others proposed it was a property of space itself, something inherent in the fabric of the cosmos. But even with all the research, even with all the new discoveries, no one could agree. No one could answer the question. Scientists were like detectives working a case with no leads, no clues, only a growing pile of evidence pointing to something far beyond their grasp. As this uncertainty grew, so did the pressure to find an answer. Dark energy was no longer just an interesting puzzle. It was the key to understanding the fate of the universe, the ultimate cause of its expanding destiny. But the deeper scientists dug into the problem, the more elusive it became. Red herrings popped up everywhere. Some astronomers argued that perhaps the acceleration was due to an error in measurement, a mistake in the way distant galaxies were being observed. But those theories quickly fell apart under scrutiny. Others suggested that the problem wasn't dark energy at all, but a deeper flaw in Einstein's theories of gravity. Perhaps, they speculated, gravity wasn't behaving the way we thought it did. But that, too, was soon ruled out. It was as though dark energy was the perfect suspect, always just out of reach, hiding in plain sight, casting its shadow over everything but never revealing its true form. For years, the world's most brilliant minds chased after this elusive force. They built new instruments, launched new telescopes, and collaborated across continents. The universe, they realized, was testing their every assumption. But even with all their tools, all their expertise, they were still just scratching the surface of the truth. Dark energy remained a mystery, something that couldn't be explained by traditional physics, something that defied everything they knew about the way the universe worked. Yet, they were compelled to keep searching, to keep pushing forward. And here's the thing that should make you sit up and pay attention. The closer they came to understanding dark energy, the more they began to question everything else. Was the universe really behaving the way we thought it was? Was everything we knew about time, space, and gravity only a small piece of a much larger puzzle? As the years passed, scientists started to realize something even more unsettling. The accelerating expansion wasn't just about dark energy itself. No, it was a reflection of something deeper, something more profound. It was a sign that the universe was moving toward a very specific fate, a fate that we may never fully understand. Imagine a force so powerful that it not only shapes the galaxies, but the entire future of existence itself. That's what dark energy represents. It's not just a force. It's a harbinger of cosmic change, a catalyst that could eventually lead to the end of everything we know. And yet, despite this ominous implication, we remain in the dark, struggling to find answers, to put the pieces together. But what about the people behind these discoveries? Who are the minds behind the most revolutionary concepts of dark energy? One name that comes up time and time again is that of Saul Perlmutter, a physicist whose team was one of the first to present compelling evidence for dark energy's existence. His group's findings in 1998 forever changed our understanding of the universe. Perlmutter, along with his collaborators, made the incredible discovery that the expansion of the universe was accelerating, not slowing down. This was the moment when dark energy as a concept went from theory to reality. But Perlmutter wasn't alone in his pursuit. Other teams, like the one led by Brian Schmidt and Adam Rees, were working around the clock, analyzing the same data, following the same trail of clues. The race was on, and as each new breakthrough was made, the tension grew. The hunt for dark energy was a race against time, against everything they thought they knew about the cosmos. But the deeper they dug, the more layers of uncertainty were uncovered. What if dark energy wasn't what it seemed? What if it was something else entirely? As we stand on the precipice of discovery, the pressure is mounting. The quest to understand dark energy has evolved from a scientific pursuit into a global challenge. Every new piece of data adds a layer of complexity to the puzzle. But with each step forward, the true nature of dark energy seems to slip further away, a mystery hiding in plain sight. The scientists are close, so close to understanding, but the answers remain just out of reach. And as they close in on the truth, there's one question that continues to haunt them. What happens when we finally discover what's really out there, pushing everything apart? Will it change everything we know about the universe? Or will it unravel everything we've come to believe about our place in the cosmos? You're still with me, and that's a good sign. But as we take the next step, the stakes get higher, the risks greater, and the mystery of dark energy only deepens. The universe is more mysterious than we ever imagined, and dark energy is at the heart of it all. But are you ready for the next twist in the story? Stay tuned, because the truth is closer than you think. As the search for answers intensifies, something strange begins to happen. The closer the scientists get to uncovering the truth about dark energy, the more obstacles seem to emerge from the shadows, each more unexpected and unnerving than the last. It begins with something small, something that, at first, seems insignificant. A key piece of data that was supposed to be stored in a secure lab database simply vanishes. The numbers, the graphs, the very calculations that could have provided the final piece of the puzzle, gone. The team checks the systems repeatedly, running diagnostics, making sure no one's made a mistake. But nothing. The data is lost, wiped clean, and for a brief moment, they're left staring at a blank screen, wondering if the universe itself is playing tricks on them. It's not just frustrating. It's unnerving. For a moment, they wonder if it's even worth continuing, if the entire project is doomed from the start. After all, how can they solve the mystery of dark energy if they can't even rely on their own data? But they push forward, determined to find the truth. Yet, as the pressure mounts, the team begins to notice something else. Someone on the inside is acting strange, almost as if they're afraid of what they might uncover. It's one of the leading scientists on the project, Dr. Jessica Turner, who, at first glance, seems like a dedicated researcher, someone who has spent years working on understanding the intricacies of dark energy. But there's something in her eyes, something that wasn't there before. A hesitation, a reluctance to engage with the team's findings as the results become clearer. At first, it's subtle, an offhand comment about the implications of their work, a nervous laugh when they suggest they're on the verge of a breakthrough. But then it escalates. She begins to disappear for long periods, taking private calls, and when questioned, she brushes it off with a forced smile. The team starts to whisper among themselves. Could it be possible? Could someone who's been a part of this project from the beginning be sabotaging their progress? It's a thought that creeps into their minds, like a shadow they can't quite shake. Then, just when they think they're on the verge of finding the missing data, a new obstacle arises, this time from an unexpected source. A mysterious figure, someone none of the researchers recognize, shows up at their lab. The man, dressed in a dark suit and sunglasses, claims to be from a government agency. He tells them that they've been looking in the wrong direction, that they're getting too close to the truth, and that they need to stop immediately. His tone is calm, almost eerily so, but there's an underlying tension to his words. He's not asking them to stop, he's telling them. There's no room for negotiation. No choice but to comply. The implication is clear. There are forces at play far beyond their understanding, and if they don't back off, the consequences could be dire. But who is this man? What does he know about their research? And why is he so determined to silence them? As the days pass, the team begins to unravel another thread in this tangled web. They learn that Dr. Turner, who has been acting increasingly strange, has a past that no one knew about, a secret history tied to a different kind of research. Before joining the team, she worked on a classified project for a private organization linked to government contracts, a project that studied unusual cosmic phenomena. The more they dig, the more they find out about her involvement in projects that, on paper, should never have existed. Could she have known something about dark energy long before anyone else? Was she part of a larger conspiracy to keep the truth hidden from the public? The more questions arise, the more confusing the situation becomes. Dr. Turner insists she's just a scientist, just a person trying to unlock the mysteries of the universe, but the cracks in her story begin to show. How deep does her involvement go? And who can they trust when they can't even trust the people they've worked with for years? Meanwhile, the strange figure in the dark suit continues to make his presence felt. He's not just an anonymous threat. He knows things that he shouldn't. The team starts to notice that their communications are being intercepted, that the work they thought was secure is now compromised. Files that were never supposed to leave the lab are somehow making their way into the hands of unknown parties. Someone somewhere is pulling the strings. And it's not just about dark energy anymore. It's about power, control, and a force far greater than any one person can understand. But as the walls close in, the truth becomes even more elusive. Each step closer to the answer seems to open up a new mystery, a new layer of deception, until it feels like they're lost in a maze with no way out. The team knows they can't back down now. They've come too far, uncovered too much. But the question is, how much further can they go before the truth becomes too dangerous to uncover? And as they dig deeper into Dr. Turner's past, they uncover a shocking revelation, one that shakes them to their core. The very concept of dark energy, the force that's been driving their research and consuming their lives, may not be what they think it is. The truth is darker, more sinister, and far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. But who is behind it all? What are they hiding? And why does this all seem so much bigger than just a scientific discovery? The tension is unbearable. Each moment feels like it could be their last. And just when they think they have all the answers, a new piece of the puzzle falls into place, one that will change everything forever. The deeper they dig, the more tangled the web becomes. And as they face these unimaginable obstacles, the question remains, will they survive long enough to uncover the truth, or will the forces trying to keep them in the dark succeed in stopping them once and for all? You'll have to stay with us to find out. As the tension continues to rise within the team, it becomes clear that the situation is spiraling beyond their control. But just when the pressure seems unbearable, a new, unexpected twist emerges, one that complicates everything even further. In a quiet corner of the lab, far from the chaos and growing paranoia, one of the researchers, Ethan James, a close colleague of Dr. Turner, begins to receive strange, cryptic messages. These messages, much like the ones the team had been dealing with, are short, cold, and direct. But unlike the warnings the team received, these messages contain a chilling directive. Ethan is not just being watched, he's being tracked. At first, he dismisses them as a coincidence, maybe even an elaborate prank. But as the messages start to arrive more frequently, he realizes that the threat is real. Someone is monitoring his every move, and the clues suggest that whoever is behind these messages knows far more about the team's research than they should. Ethan, who had always been skeptical of the darker implications of their work, becomes increasingly paranoid, and his growing fear starts to cloud his judgment. The messages hint at a deeper conspiracy, one that is connected not just to the research into dark energy, but to an even more dangerous and far-reaching agenda. Could the disappearance of the data and the threats to Dr. Turner be linked to the strange messages he's receiving? And what about the mysterious figure in the dark suit who keeps appearing at the lab? Does he have something to do with Ethan's growing paranoia? To make matters worse, one evening, after receiving another cryptic message, Ethan stumbles across an unexpected piece of evidence. It's a small, inconspicuous envelope, wedged between two old research papers. Inside, he finds something that turns everything he thought he knew about dark energy on its head, a classified government report detailing experiments far more advanced and far more dangerous than anything the team has been working on. The report suggests that dark energy might not just be a cosmic phenomenon, it could be the key to controlling reality itself. The implications are staggering, and it makes Ethan question everything: his work, his colleagues, and even his own beliefs. But the more Ethan digs into the report, the more he realizes that this evidence might not just be a clue. It might be a trap. As he goes over the documents with increasing urgency, he starts to notice strange patterns in the data, discrepancies that don't add up. There's something missing, something intentionally left out, and he can't shake the feeling that someone is trying to manipulate the truth, to keep them all in the dark. But who? Who benefits from keeping the team in the dark about the true nature of dark energy, and why would they go to such extremes to ensure the research doesn't reach the public? The mystery only deepens as Ethan starts to connect that had previously seemed unrelated. He remembers a conversation he had with Dr. Turner just a few weeks ago, a conversation that now feels eerily prophetic. She had mentioned a secret project she'd worked on years before, one that involved highly classified information about dark energy, but she'd always been vague about the details. Now, with the report in his hands and the mounting tension around him, Ethan wonders if she knew more than she ever let on. Is she a part of this larger conspiracy? Or is she simply a pawn in someone else's game? As he continues to probe deeper into her past, Ethan uncovers a series of mysterious connections, people she's worked with, organizations she's been involved in, and whispers of a covert operation so secretive that even the highest-ranking officials seem to know little about it. But just when Ethan thinks he's starting to get a clearer picture, another piece of the puzzle falls into place, and it shakes him to his core. A trusted ally, someone he thought he could rely on, betrays him in a way he never imagined. A longtime colleague, Mark Lewis, who had been assisting Ethan with the research, is suddenly nowhere to be found. When Ethan checks Mark's office, he finds it completely empty, as if he's vanished into thin air. His computer has been wiped clean, his files deleted, and there's no sign of him anywhere. The only thing left behind is a single, ominous note. "They're watching. You're next." The message is chilling, and it makes Ethan realize that the stakes have just escalated to a terrifying new level. Whoever is behind this isn't just targeting him, they're targeting everyone involved. As the days pass, Ethan's paranoia deepens. He feels like he's being hunted, and every corner of the lab seems to hold another clue, another threat, or another piece of the puzzle he can't quite put together. But there's no time to waste, no time to second-guess. The questions are multiplying, but the answers remain just out of reach. What is dark energy really? And why are so many powerful forces desperate to control it? The further Ethan digs, the more he realizes that this is about more than just scientific discovery. This is about control over the very fabric of reality itself. But who's behind it?
What do they want?
And why does it feel like the walls are closing in, with no way out? Ethan's journey takes a dark turn when he discovers that the messages he's been receiving might not be coming from an external source after all. Could they be coming from someone within the team, someone who's trying to manipulate him into uncovering the truth, and possibly pushing him toward a dangerous conclusion? Is there anyone left that he can trust, or is he walking straight into the heart of a trap? The deeper he goes, the more the lines between friend and foe blur. Each step forward seems to pull him further into a web of lies, and it's unclear who is pulling the strings. With every new revelation, the stakes climb higher, and Ethan is forced to confront the terrifying possibility that the universe, in all its vastness, may hold answers that are far darker than anyone could have imagined. The silence that had settled over Ethan's apartment that evening felt suffocating. He had spent hours poring over the evidence, trying to piece together the chaos, but the more he uncovered, the less sense everything seemed to make. The government report, the missing data, the strange disappearances, it all pointed to something far more sinister than he had initially realized. It wasn't just about dark energy anymore. No, this was something far darker, something that could have repercussions far beyond their lab, far beyond anything they had ever imagined. And yet, in the midst of all this turmoil, the most terrifying realization had dawned on him. He wasn't just searching for the truth anymore. He was running out of time. As Ethan glanced through his apartment window, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. It was a sensation that had started to creep in slowly at first, just a slight unease whenever he went out in public, a paranoid glance over his shoulder here and there. But now it was different. The sensation was raw, immediate and overwhelming. He leaned against a bench, trying to steady his breathing, but something was wrong, terribly wrong. The phone vibrated in his pocket. The same strange number. His pulse quickened as he pulled it out and unlocked it, dreading what might be waiting for him. The message was even more cryptic than the last one. It's already too late. You've crossed a line you can't come back from.
You've seen what you shouldn't have.
There's no escape now. His stomach dropped. It wasn't just a warning.
It was a guarantee.
Whoever this was, they weren't just trying to scare him. They were making it clear that he had no way out of this. He had already seen too much. In a haze of panic, Ethan turned back to head home. But just as he made his way back to the street, something caught his eye, a figure standing in the shadows of a nearby alley, watching him intently. His stomach churned. It was as if the figure had been waiting for him, waiting for the exact moment when his fear would consume him. Ethan didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He bolted, his legs moving faster than his mind could process, pushing through the crowd, dodging pedestrians, feeling the weight of the pursuit in his every step. The figure was closer now, gaining ground with a steady, relentless pace. But just as Ethan reached the entrance of his building, something happened that froze him in place. A phone call from an unknown number. He knew who it was before he even answered. The voice on the other end was cold, deliberate, and unmistakable. "We told you to stop." The voice didn't raise in volume, didn't falter, but the threat was evident. "You've been warned. You'll regret not listening." The line went dead, and Ethan stood there, heart pounding, staring at the phone in his hand, as if the device itself had become an instrument of his doom. It was then that he noticed the change, the sudden, jarring absence of the figure that had been chasing him. He whipped around, eyes scanning the empty street, but the alley was deserted. His heart raced, thudding so loudly in his ears that he could barely hear anything else. Had they been watching him this whole time? Who was behind this game of cat and mouse? He couldn't trust anyone anymore, and the fear gnawing at his insides was only getting worse. He entered his apartment with a sense of urgency, locking the door behind him, and sank into a chair, his mind reeling. There were more layers to this mystery than he could have ever anticipated, and every time he thought he had uncovered something, another twist emerged. But now, he knew this wasn't just about uncovering secrets, it was about survival. The people behind these threats were powerful, dangerous, and they wouldn't stop until Ethan had been silenced. The reality of the situation hit him like a brick wall. He was in way over his head. But who was in control? Who had orchestrated all of this? And what was their endgame? The stakes had never been higher, and Ethan's desperation to uncover the truth now felt like a race against time, and against forces far darker than anything he had ever imagined. Ethan was barely able to shake the dread that had taken root in his bones when the phone buzzed again. He barely had time to process it before the message flashed across the screen. "You don't know the truth, Ethan. Not yet." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Who was this person? Was it the same one who had been threatening him? And what truth were they referring to? Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it, to not fall for the game. But curiosity, that deadly, insatiable curiosity, pulled him in. He was already deep in this web, and there was no way out now. He felt like he was losing control of everything, of the mystery, of his sanity, of himself. What bothered him the most, however, was something more personal. His mind kept replaying a conversation he'd had with his colleague, Lena, just days before all of this had started. She had always been the voice of reason, the calm amidst the chaos, and he had trusted her implicitly. But now, after everything that had happened, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she knew more than she was letting on. That something wasn't adding up. Lena had always been careful, guarded, but something about her demeanor that day had seemed different. When they spoke about the dark energy project, she had been strangely quiet, as if she was hiding something important. Ethan had brushed it off at the time, thinking it was just her usual cautious nature. But now, as the pieces of the puzzle started to form, the possibility of betrayal began to take root. Could she have been involved in this from the start? Was she one of the people behind the threats? Or worse, was she working with them? He needed answers, and Lena was the only person who could provide them. There was no time to waste. He reached out, dialing her number, hoping for some clarity, for some kind of explanation. When she picked up, her voice sounded distant, almost as if she were expecting his call, but not quite ready to speak. "Ethan, I don't think we should talk about this anymore. It's not safe." That wasn't the Lena he knew. She was never the type to back down, never one to shy away from difficult conversations. Something was wrong. His heart raced as he pushed her, asking what was going on, what she was hiding. But she was evasive, her answers not making sense, her tone colder than it had ever been before. Finally, he demanded, "Lena, what aren't you telling me?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Ethan thought she might hang up. But then she spoke, her voice low and hesitant, as if she was about to share a secret too dangerous to be heard. "You're asking the wrong questions, Ethan. You don't know what you're really involved in. The project, The research, it was never just about dark energy. It was always about control, about manipulating the forces that bind this universe together. And if you keep digging, you'll find that you're not just up against government forces. You're up against something far older, far more powerful. The words hit Ethan like a tidal wave, knocking him off balance. He hadn't expected this. Not from Lena. He had trusted her, believed she was on his side, but now the foundation of everything he thought he knew began to crumble. "What do you mean?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "Who's behind this? Who's really pulling the strings?" Lena's voice broke as she spoke again, but her words sent a chill down his spine. "There are people, groups, I guess, who believe the universe can be controlled, bent to their will. And they've been working in the shadows for decades, manipulating the research, funding the studies, setting up the experiments. Everything. They were the ones who pushed you toward this project, Ethan. They knew you would uncover the truth. And now, they're going to make sure you never do." Ethan's mind reeled as he absorbed the gravity of her words. The project wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was a weapon, a tool of unimaginable power, capable of altering the very fabric of reality. And someone or something had been using him to get closer to it.
But why?
What was their endgame? And why now, after all this time, was it all starting to unravel? Before he could ask her anything more, the line went dead. No warning. No goodbye. Just a cold silence, leaving Ethan in a cloud of confusion and dread. He immediately tried calling back, but the phone rang and rang with no answer. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Panic rose in his chest. Had Lena been in danger? Had they silenced her? Or was she now part of the conspiracy, playing a deeper role than he ever imagined? His thoughts raced, spinning out of control as he tried to piece everything together. But then, a chilling realization dawned on him, something he had completely overlooked. When Lena mentioned they were controlling the research, she had said it in a way that made it sound like he had been chosen for a specific purpose. But what was it? Why had he, of all people, been dragged into this nightmare? Had they been manipulating him from the start, using his intelligence, his curiosity, as a pawn in their twisted game? Or was he meant to uncover the truth? Had he been led to this point for a reason? Suddenly, Ethan felt the weight of the conspiracy bearing down on him. It wasn't just about dark energy anymore. It wasn't just about a project gone wrong or a government cover-up. He was in the center of something far more dangerous. Something ancient. And the people, the forces, that were orchestrating all of this, he couldn't trust them. He couldn't even trust his own mind. They had played him from the very beginning, and the only thing left to do now was to find out just how deep this rabbit hole really went. But as he set out to search for the next clue, a new message appeared on his phone, one that made his blood run cold. "We warned you, Ethan. You should have listened. Now it's too late." Ethan's world, once a realm of logic and reason, had rapidly devolved into chaos. The messages, the threats, Lena's disappearance, it was all too much to process, yet none of it made sense. He sat in his apartment, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound keeping him tethered to reality. His phone lay beside him, the screen still lit up with the chilling warning. Now it's too late. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening, what Lena had said, and what it all meant for him. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that the walls were closing in. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape it. The dark energy, the research, the project, it wasn't just a study anymore. It was a ticking time bomb. And if he didn't act soon, he might be the one to set it off. His only hope, the one person he thought could help, was his brother, Max. They had always been close, even in their childhood, a bond forged through shared memories and the unspoken understanding that they would always have each other's backs. Max had been an anchor for Ethan in times of crisis, and now, he was the one person Ethan believed could provide clarity. But as Ethan drove to Max's apartment that night, his stomach twisted with a sense of foreboding, a growing sense that everything had changed. What if Max wasn't who he seemed? What if the person he trusted most in the world had been playing him this whole time? Ethan parked in front of Max's building, the glow of streetlights casting long shadows over the pavement. His hands gripped the steering wheel, the weight of the decision he was about to make bearing down on him. Was he prepared to confront Max? Could he handle the possibility that the one person who knew him best might also be involved in the conspiracy? He didn't know, but the choice had been made for him. If he was going to get to the bottom of this, he needed to confront the people closest to him. He needed answers. As he walked up the stairs to Max's apartment, Ethan's thoughts swirled like a storm. What if Max had been the one sending the messages? What if he knew something Ethan didn't, something that would shatter everything he believed? Could his own brother be working with these shadowy forces? It was too much to fathom. Yet, the nagging suspicion, the seed of doubt, had been planted, and there was no ignoring it now. Max's apartment door opened before Ethan could even knock. Max stood there, looking at him with a mixture of concern and something else, something more guarded. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't seen that look in his brother's eyes in years. Something was off. Max didn't speak immediately, just stood there, watching Ethan closely as if he were sizing him up. It was as though he had already made some decision, one that Ethan wasn't privy to. "Ethan, you shouldn't have come here," Max said, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if afraid someone might be listening. "This is bigger than you think." "I know, Max," Ethan replied, his voice tight with frustration. "I know it's bigger than me. But what I don't know is why you're acting like this. Why you've been avoiding me. Why you've been so distant. I need to know what's going on. Are you involved in this? Are you part of it?" Max stepped back, a visible tension in his shoulders, his face betraying an emotion Ethan couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe? "You don't get it, Ethan. You have no idea what you're up against. This..." Max's voice faltered, and he shook his head. "This wasn't supposed to be your fight. I never wanted you to get involved in any of this." Ethan's pulse quickened. "So, you are involved?" The words felt like they were being torn from him, but he had to know the truth. "Max, tell me, are you working with them?" Max's face hardened, his eyes flashing with a hint of anger. "I'm trying to protect you, Ethan. That's what I've been doing this whole time. But now, they know you're digging into things you shouldn't be. You've gone too far. And if you keep going, you'll put both of us in danger." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean? Who's going to hurt us, Max?"
Who are these people?
The question spilled out of him in a rush, but Max didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside and gestured for Ethan to come in. The apartment was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls, making the space feel smaller, colder. Max closed the door behind them, and for the first time, Ethan felt the full weight of the situation. "Sit down, Ethan. We need to talk," Max said, his voice calmer now but still carrying an undercurrent of urgency. Ethan did as he was told, his mind whirling. Max's eyes lingered on him for a moment before he sat down opposite him, his hands trembling slightly. It was clear now. Max was hiding something far worse than Ethan could have ever imagined. "There's no easy way to say this," Max began, taking a deep breath. "The project you've been investigating, it's not just about dark energy. It's about control. You've stumbled into something that was never meant to be discovered. This isn't some academic pursuit. They've been monitoring you from the start. You were never just a researcher, Ethan. You were always the key." The words hit Ethan like a slap. "The key? What does that mean?" His voice cracked as he demanded an answer. But Max only shook his head, looking like he was battling with himself, torn between protecting his brother and revealing the truth. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Max spoke again, the words slow and deliberate. "Ethan, you've been chosen for a reason. And now they're coming for you. They don't want you to uncover what's hidden. They'll stop at nothing to make sure you never find out the truth." Suddenly, a phone rang from the other room. Max's expression darkened, and he stood quickly, his face paling. "It's them," he muttered, barely audible. "I have to go."
I'm sorry, Ethan. But you need to make a choice now.
You can either walk away, forget all of this and stay safe, or you can keep going and risk everything. But whatever you choose, you won't be the same person afterward. Max turned toward the door, his hand already on the knob, and Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. The moment of truth. What would he do? Would he abandon the search for answers and keep his brother safe? Or would he keep going, knowing that the path ahead would lead him to places darker and more dangerous than he could imagine? Max opened the door and stepped into the hallway, leaving Ethan alone in the dim apartment, his mind spinning with impossible choices. The sound of the phone ringing echoed in his ears, a relentless reminder that the truth, whatever it was slipping further out of his reach. But one thing was certain. Whatever decision he made, there would be no turning back. Ethan didn't wait for Max to come back. His mind was reeling, the weight of his brother's words suffocating him with a sudden, visceral panic. He had to move fast. The deeper he dug, the more dangerous it became, and now Max was telling him to walk away, or risk everything. But walking away wasn't an option anymore. He wasn't just in the middle of a mystery.
He was a part of it.
And the more he tried to untangle the threads, the more entangled he became, as if someone had already planned his every move. He grabbed his phone, shaking as he dialed Lena's number. There was no answer. Panic surged through him as he tried again, then again, each time with the same result. His gut twisted with fear. What had happened to her? What had they done to her? His hands trembled as he shot off a text, but even that didn't feel like enough. He couldn't just sit here. He needed answers, and they weren't going to come by waiting around. He had to find Lena. He had to find out what she knew, what she had uncovered. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan grabbed his jacket and headed out the door. The cold night air hit him like a slap, but it didn't matter. The world outside felt distant, blurred by the fog of confusion and fear that clouded his mind. As he hurried through the streets, his thoughts raced, trying to piece together the fragmented puzzle. Max's cryptic warnings, the strange disappearances, the sudden threats. All of it pointed to something far bigger than he could have ever anticipated. This wasn't just about dark energy anymore. This wasn't just about some scientific breakthrough. This was about control of knowledge, control of power, and control over every person who was even remotely involved. And Ethan had unknowingly stepped right into the middle of it. He turned down a narrow alleyway, his steps quickening as he approached the address Lena had last texted him before she went silent. He'd hoped, prayed, that maybe, just maybe, she would be here, safe, waiting for him to make sense of everything. But as he reached the door, he stopped in his tracks. The lock had been tampered with. A subtle, yet unmistakable sign that someone had been here recently. His heart pounded in his chest as he slowly pushed the door open, his instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. Inside, the apartment was eerily silent, the kind of silence that felt suffocating, like the calm before the storm. The faintest trace of movement caught his eye. Something shifted on the table in the corner. He stepped closer, and his breath caught in his throat. A photograph lay face up, its edges crumpled, the image barely visible in the dim light. He picked it up, his heart stopping when he saw what it was. It was a picture of him and Max. But it wasn't just a family photo. It was a photo from years ago, from before any of this began. And written on the back, in Lena's handwriting, was a single word: betrayal. Ethan's blood ran cold. Betrayal? How could this be happening? Who could have known about the photo? Why would Lena? Why would she write something like that? Before he could process the meaning of it, a sound from the other room made his spine stiffen. Footsteps. Someone was here. He didn't have time to think. He ran toward the back hallway, his breath shallow, his heart in his throat. He barely made it out of the apartment before a man stepped into view, a tall figure dressed in dark clothing, his face obscured by a hood. Ethan froze, his pulse roaring in his ears. This was no coincidence. They were following him. They were closing in. Ethan darted down the stairwell, his footsteps pounding against the metal steps. His mind raced. Who was this person? Were they working for the same people who had been after Lena? Was this the reason Max had warned him to stop? Was this it, the point of no return? The door to the alleyway swung open just as he reached it, and he felt a sharp pain in his side, a burning sensation that spread quickly, the world blurring around him. He staggered, falling to his knees as the alley twisted and darkened before his eyes. But before he could collapse, he heard a voice, familiar, soft, and utterly unexpected. Ethan, the voice, weak and strained, barely reached his ears. "You shouldn't have come here." It was Lena, but she didn't sound like herself. Her words were ragged, barely audible, as if she was holding on to her last thread of consciousness. Ethan's heart thudded painfully in his chest as he tried to focus, tried to make sense of what was happening. His hand shot out, reaching for her, but the world tilted dangerously, and his vision began to blur. The alley, the street, even Lena herself seemed to dissolve before his eyes. And then, blackness. He woke to find himself in a small, dimly lit room, his body heavy, his mind clouded with a fog he couldn't shake. His head ached with a brutal intensity, and for a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. But then he remembered. Lena.
Max.
The photograph. The betrayal. And the growing, suffocating realization that everything he had been told was a lie. They had known. They had always known. Lena was standing by the door, her face pale, her eyes empty, like a stranger wearing her skin. "You should have listened, Ethan," she said, her voice distant, cold. "You should have stayed away." The words pierced him like a knife, but it wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it, like she had been planning this all along. His pulse quickened. Was this a trap? Was Lena involved in this all along? Had she been playing him? The very person he'd trusted with his life, his brother's warnings, his search for truth. Could she have betrayed him too? "You're too far in now," Lena continued, her gaze locked onto his, void of any emotion. "They'll never let you walk away."
Not now.
His blood ran cold.
Who are they?
The question burned in his chest, but he couldn't find the strength to ask. He could feel it now. He was caught in a web, a vast conspiracy far larger than he had ever imagined. And no matter how much he wanted to back away, to distance himself from the lies and danger, there was no escape. Not anymore. Ethan could feel the walls closing in as Lena's words echoed in his mind. He had spent so long searching for the truth, digging deeper, uncovering secrets he wasn't supposed to know. But now, standing in this small, dimly lit room with Lena, someone he thought he could trust, someone who was supposed to be his ally, he was no longer sure who the enemy even was. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on him like a vice, suffocating him, and yet, there was no time to dwell on it. The truth was just within reach, and he couldn't let it slip away now. Lena's cold eyes didn't shift as he tried to stand, the pain in his side still gnawing at him, threatening to bring him to his knees. He had to focus. He had to push through the fear. Max's warning, the mysterious messages, the photographs, they all pointed to this moment, to this confrontation. Everything he thought he knew had led him to this one inescapable truth. The conspiracy was bigger than him. Than all of them. He wasn't just caught in a mystery. He was caught in a storm that would sweep away everything he ever believed in. With a shaky breath, Ethan forced himself to his feet, ignoring the disorienting dizziness and pain. "Who are they, Lena?" he asked, the words coming out with a harshness he didn't intend. His voice cracked, but he didn't care. He needed to know. "Who are you really working for? What's all of this about?" Lena didn't answer immediately. She stepped closer, her expression unchanged, almost vacant. "It doesn't matter now," she said softly, the words like a whisper in the night air. "You can't stop it. You never could." She reached into her jacket, pulling out a small, sleek device, one he recognized instantly. The same kind of device he had seen in the encrypted files he had managed to crack earlier, the ones that detailed the research, the experiments that had taken place on Max. The ones that linked everything back to the dark energy project. It hit him then like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just part of this. She was the one pulling the strings, the one orchestrating the chaos from behind the scenes. All along, she had been manipulating him, using him to get closer to the information she needed. It wasn't just about dark energy. It was about control, power. And she had played him like a pawn. "You're not going to get away with this," Ethan growled, his voice full of both rage and disbelief. But as he took a step forward, Lena's hand shot up, holding the device between them, and the lights flickered. A sudden, Sharp buzz filled the air, and Ethan felt his body freeze. His limbs went rigid, the power of the device overwhelming him, paralyzing him in place. He tried to move, tried to fight against it, but it was no use. His muscles wouldn't obey. Panic surged through him as he realized just how dangerous this situation had become. "You're too late," Lena said, her voice now tinged with something darker, something almost sinister. "The protocol is already in motion. The research is already being put into effect. You're standing on the edge of something that's bigger than both of us." Ethan's mind raced. Research? Protocol?
What was she talking about?
Then it clicked. The entire time, it wasn't just about finding out the truth. It was about the consequences of that truth. The world they had been investigating wasn't just a series of strange occurrences, isolated incidents. It was a revolution in the making, one that would reshape the entire understanding of science, physics, and reality itself. And Lena had been at the center of it all, manipulating him, setting the stage for a final, irreversible event. Just as the weight of the situation began to sink in, the door to the room burst open. Ethan didn't have to look to know who it was.
Max.
His brother, pale and ragged, with dark circles under his eyes, stumbling into the room like a man who had just woken from a nightmare. But there was no relief in his eyes, only a cold, empty realization. "It's too late for you, Ethan," Max said, his voice flat, emotionless. "You were never supposed to know this much. But now, you've seen too much." Ethan's heart pounded.
Max.
His brother.
His ally.
What was happening? What was going on? But before he could process it, Max stepped forward, and something in his pocket clicked, a small metallic sound that made Ethan's blood run cold. A gun. Max was holding a gun. The one person who he thought he could rely on, the person who had been his anchor, his family, was now pointing a weapon at him. "Max, no," Ethan whispered, his voice hoarse, pleading. But Max didn't hesitate. His gaze was as cold as Lena's. This wasn't the same person who had stood by his side through everything. "I'm sorry," Max said, but there was no regret in his eyes, no hesitation. "This is the only way." Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears as he struggled against the paralysis that still held him in place. "What are you talking about?"
Why?
Max's lips curled into a grim smile. "You never understood, did you? This isn't just about us. It's about something far greater. We're part of something bigger. This whole thing, it's already set in motion. And you can't stop it now." Ethan's mind reeled. "What do you mean? What's happening?" Max turned his gaze toward Lena, and she nodded, just once, a barely perceptible gesture. A signal that Ethan didn't understand, but knew all too well wasn't a good sign. As if on cue, Max raised the gun. And in that moment, everything snapped into focus. It wasn't about dark energy. It was about power, about control, about rewriting the rules of the universe. And the true enemy wasn't just the ones who'd been pulling the strings all along. It was the very people Ethan had trusted. His own flesh and blood. The game had changed. Max pulled the trigger. But just before the shot rang out, there was a sudden flash, a surge of light so blinding, so intense, that it consumed the entire room. For a fraction of a second, the world seemed to collapse inward, the noise, the chaos, the pain, all of it vanishing in a single, impossibly loud explosion of white-hot energy. And then silence. The aftermath was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan's eyes flickered open, his vision still blurred, his body heavy and stiff. He could feel the cool, metallic taste of blood in his mouth, the sharp ache of his head, but none of it mattered anymore. The chaos had stopped. The lights, once harsh and blinding, now dimmed, replaced by a gentle glow that felt oddly soothing. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The weight of the world felt as though it had shifted, its crushing force now absent, leaving a strange, almost peaceful void in its wake. Slowly, his senses began to return, and with them, the realization hit him. Everything had changed. He wasn't sure how long it had been since the flash of light consumed the room, or whether the events had truly unfolded the way he remembered. But when his mind cleared enough to process what had happened, he found himself sitting on the ground, the dust of the now-abandoned building swirling gently around him. The cold, metallic surface beneath him suggested that the power had been cut, likely an effect of whatever had happened in that final, violent moment. Lena was gone. Max, too. Neither of them had survived the explosion of energy, the power of which was still reverberating deep within his bones. He should have been relieved. After everything, they had gotten what they deserved. They had been the architects of their own downfall, driven by greed and ambition, manipulating forces they couldn't hope to control. But as he sat there, staring at the empty room, his victory felt hollow. The answers he had spent so long searching for, answers about dark energy, about the conspiracy, about Max, now seemed distant, like fragments of a dream that couldn't quite be pieced together. The door creaked open slowly, and Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Someone else was here. It was a voice, familiar, soft, yet carrying a weight of sadness that pulled at his heart. "Ethan," the voice said, and he turned toward it, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. It was Maria. She stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. The woman who had been there from the very beginning, the one who had helped him navigate the complex layers of the investigation. And yet, in this moment, she looked different. There was no longer the fire in her eyes, no longer the spark of hope that had always pushed her forward. Instead, she was tired, worn down by the same weight he had carried for so long. But what struck him most was the faint flicker of recognition, the way she seemed almost relieved to see him. "I never thought I'd find you alive," Maria whispered, her voice trembling as she stepped into the room. She took a cautious step toward him, her eyes scanning the devastation around them. "What happened here, Ethan? What did you uncover?" Ethan took a deep breath, his hand instinctively reaching for the wall to steady himself as he stood. "It's over," he said, the words sounding final, even though the uncertainty in his heart remained. They were playing a game with forces they didn't understand. Dark energy. It wasn't just a project. It was a weapon, and it consumed them. His voice trailed off as he thought of Max, of Lena, and all that had been lost in their quest for power. But there was something else, something nagging at the edges of his mind, something unfinished. He had uncovered so much, and yet, in the end, so much had remained hidden. Maria's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly, though her expression remained uncertain. "So it's really over? There's no more danger?" Ethan hesitated, the finality of her question weighing heavily on him. Was it really over? He couldn't shake the feeling that something still lingered in the shadows. The mysterious flashes of light, the encrypted files, the strange events surrounding the experiments, they all pointed to something more. Something he hadn't fully grasped yet. He wanted to say yes, to tell her that they had ended it, that they had saved whatever was left of the world. But the truth was, there was always more to uncover. The mystery was bigger than any one person, and there was always another layer waiting to be peeled back. It was the nature of these things, of these forces. It wasn't something you could ever fully escape. "I think we've only scratched the surface," Ethan said quietly, his voice distant. The words hung in the air between them, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of what had happened, what they had witnessed, settled heavily over them both, and Ethan realized something important. The danger wasn't just the dark energy or the conspiracy. It was the knowledge itself, the insatiable thirst for answers, the idea that there was always more, always something deeper to find. And sometimes, ignorance was the only shield you had left. The quiet of the room was broken only by the soft hum of the lights, a sound so ordinary it was almost surreal. But as Maria looked at him, she could see it too, what he had become, what this journey had turned him into. They weren't just survivors of a catastrophe. They were the last two people who knew the truth, who had witnessed the incredible, terrifying potential of what had been unleashed. And yet, they couldn't walk away from it. They couldn't simply forget. They were forever bound to the secret they now carried, and the weight of that truth would never leave them. "I don't know what comes next," Ethan continued, his voice growing softer. "But we'll figure it out. We always do." Maria nodded, though it was unclear whether she believed it. The darkness outside pressed in, heavy and endless, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. There was so much they didn't know, so much still waiting to be revealed. And yet, they had no choice but to move forward. Together, for now. As they walked away from the ruins of the building, leaving behind the past that had haunted them, Ethan couldn't help but feel that the answers they had uncovered were only the beginning. There were still shadows lurking at the edge of their understanding, and the questions they had asked were only the first in a long line of mysteries that awaited them. The universe was vast, and dark energy wasn't the only force at play. The final piece of the puzzle hadn't been revealed, but Ethan knew one thing for sure. The story wasn't over. Not yet. The wind blew gently through the streets, carrying with it a promise of things to come, things they could never have anticipated. And as Ethan and Maria disappeared into the night, the lingering feeling of uncertainty, of impending revelation, stayed with them both, a constant reminder that sometimes the biggest mysteries are the ones that never truly have an end. And as the camera slowly zoomed out, leaving them in the distance, the faintest hint of a whisper, an echo of something they had yet to discover, lingered in the air, fading slowly, like the dying glow of a distant star, waiting for the next chapter to unfold.